You are standing in a kitchen you have never visited. Someone says a sentence you have never heard, and your whole body freezes because somehow you already know what happens next. You have felt this before, not this exact moment, this feeling, that cold, electric certainty that you have lived through the present before it even finished happening. Most people call it a glitch, a misfire, a weird little hiccup in an otherwise reliable brain. But the real answer is far stranger and far more revealing about how your mind actually works. Déjà vu is not a malfunction, it is a signal. And once you understand what it is really telling you, you will never experience it the same way again. Let's start with what it feels like, because the feeling is oddly consistent across almost every human being who has ever reported it. A sense of overwhelming familiarity, a conviction that this exact scene has already occurred, and almost always a nagging inability to say when, not last week, not last year, just before, somewhere, somehow. For most of history, this feeling had no scientific home. It sat in the same drawer as premonitions and past lives. Philosophers speculated about parallel timelines. Mystics called it proof of reincarnation. Even Sigmund Freud in the early 20th century treated it as a repressed memory resurfacing in disguise. None of these explanations held up. But they persisted because nobody had a better one. Nobody could explain in concrete biological terms why a completely new experience could feel so aggressively old. That started to change with a neurosurgeon named Wilder Penfield. In the 1950s, Penfield was operating on patients with severe epilepsy, and to map their brains safely, he stimulated different regions with a small electrode while the patient was awake and talking to him. When he touched certain points in the temporal lobe, something remarkable happened. Patients reported vivid, spontaneous déjà vu, not a memory, not a dream. A full, immersive sense of having lived this exact moment before, triggered by nothing more than a tiny electrical pulse. For the first time, déjà vu had a location. It lived in the brain's memory circuitry, not in the soul. That discovery reframed everything. If déjà vu could be switched on with electricity, it wasn't mystical, it was mechanical. Your brain runs on that mechanism every single day, quietly, without you noticing. Recognition is not a single event, it is a comparison. Every time you see a face, walk into a room, or hear a phrase, your brain is racing through its memory archive checking for a match. Usually that match is clean. You see your friend, your brain finds friend instantly, and recognition feels smooth and automatic. But what happens when the system misfires just slightly? What happens when it returns a match without actually finding one? That question brought researchers like Alan Brown into the picture. Brown, a psychologist at Southern Methodist University, spent years combing through the scattered, inconsistent déjà vu literature and noticed a pattern nobody had assembled before. Déjà vu spikes in young adults, particularly people in their 20s, and then steadily declines with age. It is more common in people who travel frequently, who watch a lot of films, who are exposed to more novel environments overall. This was strange. If déjà vu were some kind of memory glitch caused by fatigue or brain damage, you would expect it to increase with age, not fade. Instead, it behaves almost like a symptom of a healthy, actively self-checking brain. A brain that is good at catching its own errors. That idea, that déjà vu, might actually be a sign of a brain working correctly, became the foundation for one of the most important shifts in how scientists study the phenomenon. Enter Ann Cleary, a cognitive psychologist at Colorado State University. Cleary wanted to know whether déjà vu could be recreated in a lab, under controlled conditions, instead of waiting for it to strike randomly in real life. She used a method borrowed from virtual reality. Participants explored simulated scenes, ordinary places like gardens or junkyards, built using layouts that secretly mirrored earlier scenes they had seen but never consciously registered. Time and again, when a new scene shared the same spatial layout as one from earlier, participants reported déjà vu even though they insisted they had never seen anything like it before. Cleary's conclusion was elegant. Déjà vu happens when a new situation strongly resembles something stored in memory, but you cannot consciously identify what that something is. Your brain recognizes the pattern. Your conscious mind cannot locate the source. The gap between those two things is what you feel as déjà vu. Think about that for a second. Your brain is not lying to you. It is being honest about a match it found, while your conscious memory fails to retrieve the evidence behind that match. It is a system working almost too well, flagging a similarity so specific your slower, deliberate memory cannot keep up. But there was still a missing piece. If déjà vu were purely about a memory match, why does it come paired with such a strange, specific sensation of foreknowledge? Why do some people report faintly predicting the next few seconds during the episode? That question led to one of the most direct brain studies on the subject, run by Akira O'Connor at the University of St. Andrews. O'Connor placed participants inside an MRI scanner and used word association tasks designed to build a false sense of familiarity, priming people with related words like bed, pillow, and night, without ever saying the word sleep, then later asking if they had heard sleep before. Many said no, correctly, and yet still described the eerie sensation of déjà vu. When O'Connor examined the brain activity, the regions lighting up were not the memory centers you would expect. Instead, activity clustered in the frontal areas associated with decision-making and conflict resolution. His interpretation reframed déjà vu once more. It may not be your memory system talking to you at all. It may be a different, more supervisory part of your brain, essentially auditing your memory system, catching a contradiction, and flagging it. Déjà vu in this view is your brain's fact checker in action. It notices that your memory system is claiming familiarity it cannot actually justify, and it interrupts you to say, wait, something doesn't add up here. That single idea recontextualizes the entire experience. Déjà vu isn't proof that something paranormal is happening. It is proof that something protective is happening. Your brain has an internal error detection system, quietly running in the background of every unfamiliar moment, ready to catch itself if it starts hallucinating familiarity where none exists. Which brings up a darker, more clinical layer of this story. What happens when that fact-checking system breaks down entirely? Researcher Chris Moulin, working at Grenoble-Alpes University, studied patients with a rare and unsettling condition sometimes called persistent déjà vu. These patients do not experience the fleeting flicker most people feel. They live inside it. One of Moulin's patients described refusing to watch the news because he was convinced he already knew everything that was about to be reported. He would tell doctors that he had already lived through the appointment, already heard the questions, already known the outcome, every single time, with total conviction. For him, the fact-checking system Cleary and O'Connor described was not intercepting false familiarity. It had gone silent. The recognition signal was firing constantly, and nothing was left to challenge it. His memory of the past and his experience of the present had blurred into one continuous loop. It is a devastating condition. And it exists specifically because the same mechanism that gives most people a 2-second shiver of déjà vu can, in rare cases, fail to shut itself off. So here is where all four threads meet. Penfield showed déjà vu lives in the temporal lobe, physically triggerable with electricity. Brown showed it is more common in young, novelty-seeking, healthy brains, not damaged ones. Cleary showed it emerges from partial pattern matching, when a new scene resembles an old one you cannot consciously place. And O'Connor showed the feeling itself may come from a separate system, one whose entire job is to monitor your memory for errors and flag the ones it finds. Put together, déjà vu stops looking like a crack in reality. It starts looking like proof of a highly sophisticated internal quality control process, one that is usually invisible precisely because it works. Now think about the last time it happened to you. A hallway, a conversation, a stranger's face, somewhere in your memory, some fragment, a shape, a rhythm, a tone of voice, resembled something you had encountered before, closely enough to trigger a match, not closely enough for you to name it. Your brain noticed the contradiction before you consciously could, and for one strange floating second, it let you feel the gears turning. You were not glimpsing a past life. You were not peering through a crack in time. You were watching your own mind check its work in real time, and briefly, just briefly, catching it in the act. You are standing in a kitchen you have never visited. Someone says a sentence you have never heard, and your whole body freezes because somehow you already know what happens next. You have felt this before. Not this exact moment, this feeling, that cold, electric certainty that you have lived through the present before it even finished happening. Most people call it a glitch, a misfire, a weird little hiccup in an otherwise reliable brain. But the real answer is far stranger and far more revealing about how your mind actually works